The stars in the sky looked peaceful, twinkling in the cold expanse of space. Earth, a small blue planet in a vast universe, had always been just another world among many. For centuries, humans lived their lives, unaware of the great forces that surrounded them. Wars, peace, love, and loss. The familiar struggles of Earth continued. But there was something more, something the people of Earth didn't know, quietly watching them from afar. It had always been there, hidden in the shadows, until one day, everything changed. It started with a strange signal. At first, the scientists thought it was just space noise. They'd seen it before, distorted waves, distant transmissions that meant nothing. But as the days passed, the signal grew stronger. It wasn't random anymore. There was a pattern, a rhythm to it. Something was trying to communicate. Dr. Evelyn Turner, one of Earth's leading scientists, was the first to notice the shift. Sitting in her lab at the International Space Research Center, she stared at her computer screen, baffled. The signal was too structured to be a natural occurrence, and that meant only one thing. It was from someone, or something else. Her heart raced, and she immediately alerted her team. "Get in here now," she shouted over the intercom, her voice filled with a mix of excitement and fear. The others rushed in, their faces just as confused as hers. "What is it?" asked Dr. Jacob Steele, her colleague. He adjusted his glasses and leaned over her shoulder, studying the data. "It's a message, a real one. And it's coming from outside our solar system." Evelyn pointed at the screen, where the signals danced in patterns. "It's too organized to be a random event. But it doesn't match anything we've ever seen before." The room fell silent. The weight of the discovery settled on them all. "Are you saying it's from aliens?" Jacob asked, his voice low. Evelyn didn't answer right away. She only nodded, the implications of her words sinking in. They were no longer alone in the universe. Someone, or something, had sent them a message. The question was, who were they? Over the next few days, Evelyn and her team worked nonstop to decode the signal. As the pattern became clearer, so did the message. It was simple, but chilling. "We are coming. Prepare." The words sent shivers down Evelyn's spine. Whoever sent this message wasn't friendly. They were coming. And they didn't give any more details. They didn't say what they wanted. They didn't say how they planned to get here. They simply stated their arrival, and Earth was left with nothing but questions. The news quickly spread. Governments around the world went into a frenzy. Leaders gathered, military forces were mobilized, and scientists were called in from every corner of the Earth. The world was united for the first time in history, not out of hope, but out of fear, a fear of the unknown. Across the globe, people turned their eyes to the skies, waiting for something, anything, to appear. Every telescope was trained on the stars, hoping to catch a glimpse of this mysterious threat. But the silence was deafening. As the weeks passed, nothing happened. There were no signs, no ships, no weapons, no answers. But the fear never disappeared. It hung over Earth like a storm cloud, a reminder that something out there, something powerful, was waiting. The message was clear, and the unknown threat was still out there. On a warm evening in New York City, a calm but heavy silence fell over the crowd. The skies above were clear, and the stars sparkled, their distant light reaching the planet. People stood still, eyes looking upward, waiting. And then, just as the clock struck midnight, the sky began to change. At first, it was nothing more than a flicker, like a star blinking in and out. But then the flicker turned into a brighter, steady light. The light grew, and soon, it wasn't just a star. It was something huge, something moving toward them. The light grew brighter, sharper, until it was undeniable. The crowd gasped, and whispers spread like wildfire. What was that? Was it the aliens? Were they finally here? Panic spread through the crowd like wildfire. People started running, screaming, looking for shelter. But Evelyn, who had been monitoring the skies from a military base, knew better. It wasn't the aliens. Not yet. But whatever it was coming, and it was big. Where is it coming from? She demanded, pacing the control room. Just beyond the moon. It's approaching Earth, one of the technicians replied, his voice strained with urgency. Is it hostile? Evelyn asked, feeling a chill run down her spine. We can't tell yet. We don't have enough data, the technician answered, his hands flying over his keyboard, trying to analyze the incoming object. Evelyn's heart raced. She wanted answers, but none were coming. The unknown threat had made its move, but was it the same force that had sent the message? Or was something else arriving first? Hours passed, and the object drew closer. It wasn't just a ship. It was something much larger, something that looked like a shadow in space. A black ship, massive and dark, blocking out the stars as it passed. The fear that had been growing in Evelyn's chest exploded into full panic. This wasn't just a warning. This was the beginning of something much worse. Back on Earth, the world's leaders were scrambling. News stations were filled with conflicting reports. Some said it was an invasion force, others that it was a peaceful arrival. The media was filled with chaos, with speculation running wild. Governments went into emergency lockdowns, and cities began preparing for possible evacuation. Evelyn couldn't shake the feeling of dread as she watched the giant black ship move closer to Earth. There was no way they could be prepared for this. No way they could fight this force if it turned hostile. Earth was about to face a threat unlike anything it had ever seen. The ship's approach was slow, deliberate, and overwhelming. With every passing minute, the fear among the people grew. Finally, the object reached the atmosphere and began descending. It moved like a predator, silent, powerful, and unstoppable. No one knew who or what it was. All they knew was that the unknown threat was real, and Earth was facing it. The unknown force that had sent the message, the one that had sparked a chain reaction of fear, was here. The galaxy had forgotten about Earth for too long. Now, the time for humanity to prove its worth was coming. But was Earth ready? Would the humans who had been underestimated for so long be able to stand up to this threat? Or would they fall before it, just as they had fallen in the eyes of the galaxy? The unknown threat had arrived, and Earth had no choice but to face it. The days that followed were filled with a growing sense of unease. The black ship, now hovering just outside Earth's atmosphere, cast a long shadow over the world. Governments tried to reassure their citizens, but the tension was palpable. People everywhere were filled with fear and uncertainty, and the media fueled the frenzy with constant updates, often conflicting. Some experts believed the ship was simply observing, while others feared an imminent attack. No one truly knew what was going to happen next, and that uncertainty gnawed at the hearts of all who watched. In the heart of the United Nations, leaders gathered in an emergency summit, desperately trying to form a plan. Evelyn Turner, still working at the International Space Research Center, was called in as an expert to help interpret the incoming data. As she sat in the conference room with military officials and scientists from around the world, her mind raced. She had studied the stars her entire life, but this was nothing like what she had ever encountered. The ship was unlike anything humanity had ever built or even imagined. "We need to act now," said General Marcus, the head of the Global Defense Forces. "This thing isn't moving. It's either waiting for us to make a move, or it's simply too powerful to even be challenged." Evelyn leaned forward, studying the data. "We don't even know if it's hostile. For all we know, it could be just a scouting mission. Then why hasn't it moved? It's been stationary for hours," the general argued, his voice filled with frustration. "We can't sit around waiting to see if it opens fire." Evelyn couldn't argue with that. The longer they waited, the more vulnerable they became. But they didn't have any answers. No communication, no signs of aggression, just a silent, looming presence in the sky. Meanwhile, across the globe, smaller countries and independent nations were taking their own measures. In cities like London, Tokyo, and Cairo, citizens gathered in the streets, their faces painted with fear and hope. People had stopped going about their normal lives. The usual hustle of the cities had turned into quiet, anxious waiting. Families huddled together, watching the skies. Military forces, once hidden from public view, were now on full alert. The streets were lined with soldiers, and the sounds of helicopters filled the air. But for all the fear, there was also something else stirring beneath the surface, something the rest of the world couldn't see. A quiet, simmering anger, a sense of defiance that had been building in the hearts of the people. They weren't just sitting by idly, waiting for their doom. No, humanity had always been a force of resilience, of survival. And deep down, they knew it was time to prove that once again. In the United States, President William Carter sat in his war room, staring at the screens that showed the ship's position. His advisors spoke in hushed tones, but Carter could barely hear them. His mind was elsewhere. The messages from the Galactic Council had been clear. They didn't think much of Earth. To them, humans were a primitive species, unworthy of attention or concern. But Carter knew the truth. Humanity had survived wars, disasters, and centuries of struggle. They had fought back when no one expected them to. And if these aliens thought they could come to Earth without facing resistance, they were in for a rude awakening. "I don't care if they think we're not ready," President Carter muttered, his voice low. "We've been underestimated for too long." His words hung in the air, and as he said them, a shift occurred. Across the globe, the people of Earth began to feel it. The anger, the frustration, those emotions that had been building over generations, came to the surface. They had been pushed, ignored, and dismissed by the galaxy. But now, they had the chance to make their mark, and they were going to take it. Back at the International Space Research Center, Evelyn was still working tirelessly with her team, trying to decipher the alien signals. She had begun to wonder if the lack of communication was deliberate. Maybe these aliens didn't want to talk. Maybe they were just waiting for the right moment to strike. As she worked, her thoughts kept returning to one undeniable fact. Whatever these aliens were, they hadn't expected humanity to be this united, this determined. In the quiet of her office, as night fell, and the stars became visible through the window, Evelyn made a decision. She couldn't wait any longer for answers. She had to act. Not just for humanity's survival, but for its dignity. The world had underestimated them for far too long. The time for fear had passed. It was time to show the galaxy what humanity was capable of. And as the black ship continued to hover above them, waiting for a response, Evelyn knew one thing for sure. Earth wasn't going down without a fight. The signal to the galaxy had been sent. Humanity was ready to defend itself. But the question remained, would the aliens be ready for what was coming? The next morning, Earth's cities were waking up to the growing sense of urgency. The black ship, still hovering silently over Earth, seemed even more ominous now. Every news outlet across the world was covering the same story. No one could understand why it hadn't moved or why it hadn't made contact. There were theories, of course. Some believed it was waiting for a response. Others feared it was too powerful to challenge. And in every corner of the world, people were beginning to question, what did it want? Evelyn Turner sat in the command center of the International Space Research Center, staring at the massive holographic screen in front of her. The data continued to pour in, more confusing with each passing hour. She could sense the growing unease among the people she worked with. Scientists and military experts from all over the world were now gathering here, hoping to come up with an explanation, an answer. But Evelyn had a sinking feeling that there was no explanation that could comfort them now. As the minutes dragged on, the tension in the room became unbearable. It was as if they were all waiting for something to happen, but no one dared to make the first move. The ship remained still in the sky, and Evelyn couldn't shake the thought that they were being watched, that the aliens knew everything about them already. Her thoughts were interrupted by a sharp voice from behind her. "Evelyn, we've detected something. A signal. It's coming from the ship." Evelyn turned to the technician, who was looking at the screen in disbelief. The signal wasn't just a simple message. It was an encrypted transmission, far more complex than anything they had seen before. A message from the ship, but not one they could decipher easily. "Can we break it down?" Evelyn asked, her voice steady despite the pounding of her heart. "We're trying, but this is beyond anything we've encountered. It's alien. They're using technology we can't even begin to understand." Evelyn's mind raced. She had known, deep down, that Earth wasn't ready for this. They weren't prepared for what was coming, not really. But humanity had always been good at adapting, at surviving. Maybe now was the time to prove it. The more she thought about it, the more she realized that this wasn't just a random event. The aliens weren't just coming to Earth because they were curious. No, they were here because they saw something in humanity, something they hadn't expected. And now, they were watching. She couldn't wait for the rest of the world to act. She needed to act now. And just as she was about to give the order to the team to attempt to send a message of their own, a sudden voice echoed in her earpiece. "We've got a response." Evelyn froze. The voice was calm, yet there was an edge of panic in it. She couldn't believe it. The black ship, which had remained silent for so long, had finally responded. On the screen, a series of cryptic symbols began to appear. The message was unlike anything Earth had ever seen. Even the most advanced translators couldn't decipher it quickly enough. But Evelyn knew one thing for sure. The aliens had finally decided to communicate. And in that moment, as the cryptic symbols filled the screen, Evelyn realized something else. The first move had been made. They had contacted humanity, and the clock was ticking. Back on Earth, the people were starting to stir. Rumors spread like wildfire. Some believed this was a sign of peace, others that it was the beginning of something much worse. The military ramped up their defenses, and governments began to issue warnings to their citizens. But amidst the chaos, something deeper was brewing in the hearts of the people. A quiet resolve began to settle in. People weren't panicking anymore. They weren't running. They were watching. And for the first time, humanity seemed united. A collective anger began to rise, not just from the elite or the military, but from the average citizens. They weren't going to be the weak, helpless species anymore. They weren't going to let anyone look down on them, especially not these aliens who thought they could just show up and intimidate Earth. As the aliens' message continued to flash on the screen, Evelyn felt a surge of determination flood through her. She had always known that humanity had something special, something that no other species could replicate. And now, they were about to show it. The time for fear was over. Humanity was about to make its move. And the galaxy wasn't ready for what was coming next. As the days passed, the tension on Earth grew more palpable. Governments scrambled to respond to the alien ship hovering above their planet. The world's leaders convened in an emergency session, trying to determine how best to react. Some pushed for diplomacy, suggesting that humanity try to communicate with the extraterrestrials and offer peace. Others, however, were not so optimistic. The ship had not moved for days, and the cryptic signal it had sent only deepened the mystery. Humanity had always prided itself on its resilience, but now there was a gnawing fear that perhaps Earth wasn't as prepared for the unknown as it once thought. Evelyn Turner sat in the command center, watching as the world's military forces prepared. She could see the unease on the faces of the military leaders gathered around her. They were used to threats, but this was different. The alien ship was no longer just a curiosity. It was a looming danger. Evelyn's mind raced, wondering what their next steps should be. What would happen when the aliens made their move? And most importantly, would humanity be ready? Then, a breakthrough came. The signal the aliens had sent was starting to make more sense. After days of analyzing it, one of the researchers found a pattern. Something that seemed almost like a warning. It wasn't just a message, it was a challenge. The symbols flashing on the screen now appeared to be a test. They were measuring Earth's readiness, its strength. The aliens were not just looking for peace, they were assessing humanity to see if it was worth their attention. Evelyn realized that the stakes had just been raised. This wasn't about negotiations. The aliens had tested humanity, and in doing so, provoked something deep inside every human being. Fear had turned to anger, and now a collective desire to prove themselves had spread like wildfire. The news spread quickly across the globe. Military forces were mobilizing, but the response from the people was even more significant. Ordinary citizens, once unsure and scared, were now uniting. People who had never even considered participating in the defense of their planet were joining together, volunteering to help. Something had awakened in them. It was as if the entire world had been waiting for a moment like this. A moment when humanity could rise, show its true strength, and prove that it was not to be underestimated. Evelyn knew that they could not rely solely on their military might. There was something else, something more powerful, that humanity had always possessed. Determination. It was the force that had driven humans to explore new worlds, overcome impossible odds, and never give up. Now, it was their time to show the galaxy what that determination could do. The world's leaders began making plans to engage the aliens, but Evelyn knew that this couldn't be a conventional battle. It wouldn't be about firepower alone. The aliens had come expecting something else, something beyond weapons. It was time to show them the strength of human spirit. If the galaxy had underestimated humanity before, they were about to be in for a very rude awakening. As the alien ship loomed over Earth, Evelyn turned to her team and gave a quiet but firm order. Prepare for the response. It's time we show them exactly what humanity is made of. The room fell silent as everyone understood the weight of what she had just said. There would be no going back. Humanity was no longer on the defensive. They were taking the fight to the aliens, and they would prove that Earth was not a planet to be conquered. Around the world, ordinary people were gearing up for the coming battle. Governments made their final preparations, and military forces stationed themselves for the inevitable conflict. But no one knew what to expect. No one knew what would happen when humanity finally responded. The aliens had come with their own sense of superiority, but they would quickly learn that the fury of a united Earth was more than they could handle. Evelyn stood in front of the massive screen that displayed the alien ship in the sky. The countdown to humanity's response had begun, and she couldn't help but feel a surge of adrenaline. The aliens had made a grave mistake by underestimating Earth, and now the galaxy would see the power that humanity could unleash. As the world watched, the alien ship above Earth remained silent, almost as if it were waiting, taunting humanity to make the first move. Tension filled the air, thick with anticipation. Everyone, military leaders, civilians, and scientists, waited on the edge of their seats. The countdown had begun, and the time to act was upon them. In a few short hours, the world would either be conquered or humanity would rise to defend its home. The weight of the moment was immense. Evelyn Turner stood at the forefront of the command center, staring up at the massive screen displaying the alien vessel. Despite her calm exterior, inside she felt a storm of emotions swirling. The fate of Earth rested in their hands. They had prepared for this moment for weeks, analyzing every scrap of data they could gather. But now, everything would be decided by how humanity responded. Could they really overcome the immense power of the unknown? Would their defiance be enough? At that moment, the air crackled with an electric charge. The screen flickered, and then, without warning, the alien ship emitted a pulse of energy, sending a shockwave across the globe. It was a force unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. The pulse struck power grids, communication satellites, and infrastructure, leaving parts of Earth in darkness. Panic rippled across the planet as cities fell into chaos. The alien ship had made its first move. "We're under attack," someone shouted in the command center, and Evelyn's heart raced. The time for hesitation was over. The alien ship had shown their hand, and now it was humanity's turn to respond. There was no more waiting. There was no more room for fear. "Activate the defense systems," Evelyn ordered, her voice sharp and commanding. She knew the response had to be swift, or Earth might never recover. The military, now fully mobilized, began launching countermeasures, sending their most advanced weaponry into space. Missiles and energy blasts shot toward the alien ship, but the vessel's shields easily absorbed the attacks. The alien technology was far superior to anything humanity had. The fight seemed hopeless, but Evelyn knew something the aliens didn't. Humanity was not just about technology. It was about something far deeper. In the midst of the chaos, a strange thing began to happen. Across the globe, people started to organize, to fight back in ways that were entirely unexpected. Citizens who had no military experience began volunteering, forming grassroots resistance groups. People didn't wait for orders from above. They took matters into their own hands. From the streets of New York to the outskirts of Tokyo, the resistance grew stronger. Humanity had been pushed too far, and now they were no longer willing to sit idly by. Evelyn watched as humanity's might began to show itself, not just through weapons, but through the sheer will to survive. The alien ship, so confident in its superiority, was now faced with something it hadn't accounted for: the fury of a united species fighting for its survival. The small groups of resistance fighters, armed with nothing more than makeshift weapons and raw determination, began striking at alien forces, causing confusion and disruption. The tide was beginning to turn. But the alien ship was not without its own resources. It retaliated with a massive shockwave, sweeping through the planet's atmosphere, knocking out communications and scrambling military systems. Evelyn's heart sank. The aliens had control. For a brief moment, it seemed like all hope was lost. But that's when the unexpected happened. As the world seemed to falter, a new signal appeared on the screens, an encrypted transmission coming from deep space. It was a message, one that Evelyn could hardly believe when she saw it. A fleet of ships, human-made, emerged from the depths of space. They were not part of Earth's military, nor had they ever been seen before. They were the legacy of the humans who had been forgotten by the rest of the galaxy. Hidden for years, these ships had been built in secret, waiting for the moment when humanity would need them most. Evelyn could hardly believe her eyes. These ships were humanity's last hope, and they had arrived just in time. The Resistance, now united with the reinforcements from the hidden fleet, launched a counterattack with a fury the aliens had never expected. The shockwaves of humanity's vengeance rippled across space, and the alien ship, once confident in its victory, found itself fighting a battle it couldn't win. The human fleet was small but fiercely determined. The ships moved with precision, targeting weak spots in the alien vessel's defenses. Each strike was a testament to humanity's ingenuity, perseverance, and its refusal to back down. The fight raged on, with the alien ship slowly beginning to falter under the combined force of Earth's resistance and the hidden fleet. It wasn't just the technology that was turning the tide. It was humanity's spirit. The aliens had made the mistake of thinking that Earth's people were weak. They thought humanity was fractured and divided. But they were wrong. When pushed to the edge, humanity could do more than just survive. It could rise and fight with everything it had. And that was exactly what was happening now. Evelyn's heart raced as she watched the battle unfold. The alien ship was weakening, its once strong shields flickering. The battle was far from over, but it was clear that the aliens had underestimated the power of humanity's resolve. Earth wasn't just defending itself anymore. It was fighting back, and in a way the galaxy had never seen before. The aliens were about to learn that when humanity's fury is unleashed, nothing can stand in its way. The battle raged on, fierce and unrelenting. The alien ship, though technologically advanced, had never encountered an opponent quite like humanity. As the humans launched relentless attacks, the alien vessel began to show signs of strain. Its once impenetrable shields flickered and weakened under the barrage of missiles and energy blasts. But the aliens weren't done yet. They retaliated with a fury of their own, launching weapons that shook the very fabric of space. A massive energy beam shot from the ship, causing explosions that rippled across Earth's atmosphere, creating massive shockwaves that rattled buildings and sent shock and panic through the resistance. Evelyn stood at the command center, watching the unfolding chaos. Her fingers gripped the edge of the table as the tension in the air thickened. The aliens had proven to be a formidable foe, but there was something undeniable in the way the humans were fighting back. The resistance was growing stronger by the second, and their determination was like nothing the galaxy had seen before. Despite the overwhelming odds, humanity's forces refused to give up. They fought with everything they had, from the smallest resistance groups to the massive hidden fleet that had emerged from deep space. It wasn't just about advanced weapons anymore. It was about the spirit of unity, the sheer will to protect their home. The humans were determined to prove that no matter how powerful the aliens were, they would never be able to break their will. In the midst of the chaos, Evelyn received a transmission from an unexpected source, one of the resistance leaders from a remote part of the world. His voice was steady, but it carried the weight of the battle. "We've taken down another shield generator. The aliens are weakening." Evelyn's eyes widened. She had known the battle was going well, but hearing those words meant more than she could put into words. It wasn't just about surviving anymore. It was about victory. The humans were turning the tide. As the hours passed, the alien ships' once imposing defenses were steadily chipped away. The combined efforts of Earth's military, the civilian resistance, and the hidden fleet brought down the alien shields piece by piece. It wasn't easy, and there were countless casualties along the way. But humanity was relentless. Every setback fueled their determination. Every loss made them more focused on the bigger picture. The alien vessel, now visibly damaged, tried to retreat, but it was too late. The human forces had already coordinated their attacks in perfect synchrony. The alien ship had no escape. It was surrounded, trapped in a net of human fury. Evelyn's heart raced as she watched the final moments of the battle unfold. The alien ship's core reactor, already critically damaged, began to spark and crackle with energy. The human fleet, realizing what was happening, launched a final series of missiles at the reactor. The impact was immediate and devastating. With a deafening explosion, the alien ship erupted in a ball of fire and light. The shockwave reverberated through space, a testament to the power of human ingenuity and willpower. The alien ship was no more, reduced to debris scattered across the void. For a brief moment, silence fell over the battlefield. It was hard to believe. After all the chaos, all the violence, Earth had won. The aliens who had thought they could easily crush humanity were now gone. The galaxy had just witnessed the true strength of the human spirit. Evelyn took a deep breath, her heart still pounding. There were no words to describe the feeling of triumph that washed over her. It was more than just a military victory. It was the moment humanity had shown that no one, not even the most powerful alien force in the galaxy, could ever underestimate them again. The world would never be the same. The battle had been hard fought, and there were no illusions that the fight was over. But for the first time in a long while, humanity stood victorious. The message was clear. When pushed to the edge, humanity could do more than just survive. It could conquer. It could rise. And in doing so, it had secured its place in the galaxy, forever altering the balance of power in ways no one could have predicted. As the last remnants of the alien ship drifted into the cold expanse of space, Evelyn turned away from the command center's monitor, a small smile tugging at her lips. The fight wasn't over, but for now, humanity had made its mark, and no one would ever forget the day when the furious humans answered the call and changed the galaxy forever. The victory against the alien forces was celebrated across Earth. For the first time in centuries, humanity had come together, not just as nations, but as a unified force capable of facing the most daunting challenges the universe had to offer. Governments, military forces, civilians, everyone had played a part. The human spirit had triumphed, proving that even in the darkest of times, there was hope. But the galaxy was not unaware of the power humanity now wielded. Across the stars, alien civilizations watched the events unfold with a mixture of shock and fear. They had never anticipated that the species they had once considered weak and insignificant could rise to such heights. The Galactic Council, who had long dismissed humanity, now found itself in an uncomfortable position. The galaxy was no longer just their domain. As the dust settled, Evelyn and the other leaders of Earth began to contemplate the future. Their world had changed, and so too had their place in the galaxy. The victory over the alien invaders was just the beginning. More challenges lay ahead, and the newly united human race would have to decide how to navigate this new era. Would they rise to become a galactic power, or would they remain the guardians of Earth, wary of the dangers that lay beyond? Evelyn stood at the window of her office, looking out at the stars. Earth had been saved, but the war had left its mark. The human race had faced an unprecedented threat, and they had come out on top. But as she looked out at the vast expanse of space, she knew this was just one battle in a much larger war. There were more alien forces out there, more unknown dangers lurking in the darkness. The time had come for humanity to decide how it would move forward. They had been tested, and they had passed. Now they had to prepare for whatever would come next. Across the world, news of the victory spread like wildfire. People celebrated in the streets, honoring those who had fought and sacrificed. The human race had proven its worth. And for once, the galaxy knew they were no longer just another species to be conquered. Humanity had made a statement. But as the celebrations continued, Evelyn couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The alien forces had underestimated humanity once, but they wouldn't make that mistake again. And soon, other civilizations would be watching, waiting to see what humanity would do next. The furious humans had answered the call, and the galaxy had been forever changed.